Hello, I'm Pamela Carter, and I'm the host of Deeper Shopping, and we are here at the CBA convention with Lori Wick, the international best-selling author of the Tucker Mills trilogy and many, many, many other wonderful books. In fact, on our online bookstore, she is the #1 best-selling book and has the most inquiries on our website. So we are so happy to have you here, Lori. I so enjoyed your book, and I didn't get to read the first two, but this particular one is Leave a Candle Burning, and it's the final in the trilogy of the Tucker Mills.
It is, yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the background of the Tucker Mills trilogy.
I will,
and then,
yeah.
Bring us up to date.
I decided,
for those that haven't read.
Sure, I decided to head east for a story. I like to pick different states at different times, and we decided to do Massachusetts, and I hadn't really settled on a particular time period, but I knew I wanted to do something a little earlier. I'm used to doing Victorian times, and this time I picked in the 1830s. And we went and we found some marvelous places to do research. And so the first book is Moonlight on the Mill Pond, and it's set in 1838. And then the second book is Just Above a Whisper and moves into the year 1839. And then this book is set in 1840, Leave a Candle Burning. And it settles around, all three stories are in the town of Tucker Mills, Massachusetts. Which
is this a real town?
No, I made that up.
You made that up?
I did make that up. But lots of the things in the books, in fact, for the first time ever, all three books have a glossary at the back, because I learned so many things just going. We went twice to Massachusetts and researched and checked things out, and I'm not known for tons of historical fact. I make a lot of things up. But these books have lots of really interesting little facts in them that were fun to add.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about the storyline for people that have not yet seen this, even on the bookshelves yet.
Sure. Well, in the first two books, Doc McKay is this beloved older doctor in town, and everyone loves him. He's part of the church family there, and he takes great care of the community. And he's decided to retire. And in his place, his nephew Dannon comes, Dannon McKay. And Dannon just embraces Tucker Mills. He loves the people. He's ready to take care of them and just incorporate his life into theirs. Well, then a few things kind of come on the scene. He actually spots a young lady, and it feels quite drawn to her, but this is not something he can pursue. There's factors there that he can't get involved. And then he even has some family tragedies that go on that affect his life and impact his life. And I really like Dannon because of the way he deals with all of these things. He keeps trusting in the Lord to get him through to one day after another, even when he's grieving sometimes the loss of family and different things that are going on, and his heart is a little bit torn about this woman. And he's got good friends in the different people in the town and in the church family. And one of the fun parts is the folks that like the characters of the first two books. They have them in lots of places in the third book. So that was really fun to keep the community going.
Right. So you kind of build a little family.
Yes.
And is that kind of what you try to do in your storytelling? Is build a history, kind of build relationships with your characters, so that when your readers read your books, they want to find out, okay, what happens to this family and the different characters. So then that kind of, continues that family relational situation.
Right. I don't know if I think about it so much from the standpoint of wanting to, touch somebody's curiosity, so much as wanting it to be real. And all of us are so surrounded by family. Our church families are important to us. Our neighbors are important to us. I personally am from a very small town, and there's lots of community there, and those people, those neighbors, those friends that you pass at the post office, that's very real life. So that was not a stretch from a fiction standpoint to write this around a small community, people that genuinely care about each other, and little things that would happen in this day and age. When someone would die, they would ring a certain amount of bells to tell you if it was a man or a woman. And then they would ring a bell for each year of that person's life. Now, that doesn't go on in our small towns today, at least not that I'm aware of, not in where I live anyway. But just little things like that just brings the community closer and closer together. And that just seemed normal to me, that this Tucker Mills community would be the same way.
Well, in our day and age, too, in America, our families are becoming more and more disjointed. The extended families are becoming more and more disjointed. So to have stories that really bring the family, bring that community together, people can, in a sense, get an idea if they haven't grown up. A lot of us have grown up in dysfunctional homes,
Sure.
broken families, so it is a very interesting to be able to kind of read what that might have been like,
Right.
to have that sense of community.
Yeah.
But I love that there is I hope I'm not giving away your story, but
Okay.
there's a beautiful little 3-year-old girl that I just fell in love with in this story, and this is what really kept me drawn back to wanting to know what happened to the little girl. And so there is a storyline about orphans in this book, and
there
is a big theme
Yeah.
that goes through this book.
Yeah, it is a driving force in the story, and I think it is interesting how everybody handles it, and even it doesn't give it away. Dan ends up, becoming a father, as it were, to this little girl that he did know.
Right.
They're not strangers, and even as he brings her back, he sent word. He's in another town. He sends word that he is returning to Tucker Mills with this little girl, and the church family is so choked up about this. They can barely talk about it. The men, all of them. At one point, the pastor is preaching, and something happens with this little girl, and he's so choked up he can't finish his sermon. They're all so affected by this.
And how this little girl affects so many people's lives and brings healing, really, into so many relationships and so many people's lives. Was just a God gift that you would think an orphan in our day and age, but it really was a gift to this community to take care of this little girl. And just all that happens and surrounds. There's a whole love story that surrounds, and so I had to turn to the back of the book to find out what happened. But we won't tell anybody what exactly happened on this. But tell me a little bit about some of your other series that you have written.
Well, my books are always character driven. The plot lines are always centered around the people. The places we go, let's see, we've been in California a couple of times, England a couple of times, Texas, and one was set in San Francisco, just different places. Those are always just backdrop, and even though it's fun to work in those settings or in a particular city, that's always just backdrop to books that are very strongly character driven. I think that if I fall in love with a character, that's an easy book to write, because I want to tell that person's story. I want to include all the people that make and shape that person as to who they are, and then watching people go through their daily lives. There's typically the people in my books are just normal everyday people. There's one time I had somebody who was a big star. Very, very successful author, but for the most part they're everyday people that anybody can relate to, working their lives out, following Christ and staying in the Word and being true to, their faith.
So a lot of your books really do center around real Christians in the real world, living their lives, and the struggles that they have to face and the choices. Really, it's all about choices. That God gives us all choices,
right? And
how we make those choices to either trust God or do it our own way, and then the consequences really that come from those choices would be really. Now, where do you get the inspiration for your characters?
Well, I think.
Do you know some people? Do they remind you of people that are in your life or that you've met?
Sure.
How do you build a character in a story?
Once in a while, I will meet someone, and a little something that they tell me I will find very interesting, and I might kind of run with that. When I did Sophie's Heart, I had years before read about a woman who married to come into the country, to leave her country. a communist country. Well, that isn't what Sophie did. But I was struck for the first time ever how difficult that would be to come to the United States without tremendous English speaking skills.
Right.
And my mind just ran with this woman. And so that can be where an idea can come from, even for something I read in another book, just an idea will spark. I remember watching Jeopardy one night, and this man is he's a speech therapist for people that have had strokes, and lo and behold, one of the women in our town, while she was still in her 30s, had a stroke. And I thought, wouldn't that be romantic if he was teaching a woman to speak again after having a stroke, and they fell in love? And I haven't written that story, but it came to mind. Then one time I'm at a wedding in California, and this woman's name was just kind of unusual, and I asked her about it, and we talked about her name, and I've created an entire person out of just that woman's name, because the name was intriguing to me, and I just kind of ran with it. And I am way overly imaginative. I mean, there's just no getting around that.
Was this a gift that you had from childhood, writing, or when did you start writing?
No, I did not start writing, and yes, it's a gift from childhood, much to my mother's chagrin. Yes, in fact, she would say to me, "Now, Lori, did this really happen?" And I could stop. And my own daughter is creative, and I would say to her, "You know what? If you're telling me a story, I want to hear it. But right now, I need to know: did this really happen?" And oh no, you're right. It's a story. I said, "Okay, you may continue." Oh, because as a kid, I would, definitely blur between the two, because what I imagined. I don't know if you've ever seen Anne of Green Gables.
Oh.
Yes,
one of my favorite books.
Anne Shirley says to Marilla, if I could just tell you what I imagine about myself, it's so much more interesting.
Yeah, it's so much more interesting.
I love that line, because it kind of describes, Lori's little brain here.
Yes. So. Well, that's great. My sister and I we would make up, back when we were growing up anyway, we didn't watch a lot of television. We didn't have video games. We didn't have a lot of that kind of entertainment. So we had to entertain ourselves. So we would get our dolls, we would do skits, we would make up a whole, in fact, we used to draw out of a hat. We'd put, okay, do we want to be airline stewardesses today? Do we want to be, are we mothers, or what are, we had all these different things, and so we'd draw out of, okay, today this is the plot we're going to do, and so we'd act out this whole thing, and well, lo and behold, we all, both of us went into either acting or television or film or whatever. So it's just interesting how God plants that early on in our lives. And so we had the most fun, really. We just entertained ourselves and used our imagination.
Right.
And so, I have written, I love to write too, but I've never written really a novel or anything like that. So that's a huge...
But you might.
How long does it take?
That's a little iffy depending on what else is going on in life. I've turned one out as quickly as 6 weeks and as long as 8 months. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you just sit down at a computer?
Yeah, I do like a computer, but if I don't have one with me, I can write by hand. I wrote my first manuscript by hand because I didn't have a computer. If you want it, you'll do it.
Yes.
And so, it's either way. It's
fine.
What
was your first?
A Place Called Home.
Okay, and is that a trilogy or is that just?
There's 4 in that series.
Okay.
Set in Wisconsin. Yes, I almost forgot for a minute. It's been a few years ago. That one's set in Wisconsin in the 1880s. Okay. My brother-in-law came across this interesting railroad map that was dated, I think, 1885 or something, and I thought, now that's interesting to know where the railroad was in Wisconsin, and the next thing you know, I'm writing a story using the railroad.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was fun.
It really does. Yeah. Well, Lori, you are a talented author and storyteller, and she just keeps you turning pages, and encourage you all to get the trilogy, or even if you just want to find out what happens at the end of the trilogy, leave a candle burning. And Lori Wick is our guest, and we're just grateful to have you here, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
And we will talk to you later, and go get the book, read it. You'll have a great time. God bless.